Good afternoon. I'll call to order the meeting of the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I'd offer that motion. Approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Public Utilities held April 25th, 2017.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Public Utilities Commission held April 25th, 2017. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Next, we have our Utilities Director report.
Thank you, President Heine and Commission members. A few items to note since our last meeting in April. Highlights for the electrical department are our transformer, the new transformer at the Southside substation was delivered and installed approximately 2 weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago today, and there was a construction meeting on site today. The balance of plant work is starting now to connect that transformer to our system, and it's anticipated that it'll be operational in early July. Also, I would note that our sump pump program compliance inspections have resumed for the spring and summer. This is the third year of the 3-year program, and I want to stress the importance of this program in reducing the likelihood of sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups, and then just the reduced costs to our wastewater department for pumping and treatment costs. One more item to note, we some time ago had a fire inspection. The fire insurance program came and inspected our system, and I know that the water department has been busy color coding our hydrants. So if you notice the different colored nozzles on the hydrants, all of our hydrants are now fire coded according to the flow capability, which greatly helps out our fire department in case of an incident. So with that, you have the remainder of the report. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
And our Employee of the Month is Jeremy Hillesheim.
That's right. Jeremy is the Chief of Maintenance at the wastewater plant. He's been employed with the wastewater plant since 1999, initially as a summer intern, and really has been employed there ever since. He's currently the Chief of Maintenance at the plant, and he has quite a number of licenses. He has the top wastewater license, a Class A license. He has a Type 4 land application for our biosolids disposal, and he also has a Special Engineer Class B boiler operator's license. Jeremy is noted to be a very reliable employee, always willing to help out his coworkers, and his experience and knowledge in all facets of the work at the wastewater treatment is very valuable to that department.
I'll make a motion to receive and order filed the report regarding utility operations during the month of May 2017.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to receive and order filed the report regarding utility operations during the month of May 2017. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Next, we have a report regarding woodpecker damage.
I'll just say a few words about that. This is some recent damage, and I know it sounds quite humorous, but it's a recent phenomena for us with, I suppose, improved environmental conditions for some of the species of woodpeckers that we have in this area. We have, I don't know if I'd call it an infestation, but we have a good population of the pileated woodpeckers in this area, and we're dealing with some of the nesting of that group in our transmission poles across the river. So Dan Perzig has a presentation that he wants to provide for the commission on that subject.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, like Pat said, this has recently become an ongoing problem, and it seems like every time we look at them, we're realizing the scope is a little bigger than we thought. So I start with a short history of what's been going on. So last fall, winter, staff started finding woodpecker damage on the transmission poles going across the river to Fort Ridgely. So we did some vendor recommended repairs to the poles. In January, we hired Power Systems Engineering to come in and do a structural assessment of these poles. And in March, March 10th, we received their report, and with a recommendation on a replacement and monitoring plan. Late March, we decided that we kind of would like a second opinion, just because we weren't real comfortable with everything we were told. April 12th, DGR came on site to do a inspection on their own, and then we found some new woodpecker damage on that at that time. So then, about 2 weeks ago, May 18th, we received their report on on their recommendations and result. Then today, we sent out the crews to check and look for any new damage, just to give you the most up to date. And we have found 5 new damaged poles that we'll talk about in a minute here. Some of the new damage is on poles that already had damage, and some of it is on poles that had no prior damage. And then today we're presenting our findings. First is the PUC recommendation. The red stars are the ones that they recommended replacing as soon as practical. And the yellow ones were recommended as monitor. As you can see, there were 4 they felt we should be replacing as soon as possible, and 5 were an ongoing monitoring situation. And this was mostly a structural analysis, just to realize, okay, we want to know, are they about to fall down, or what should our level of concern be at this time? So we did some rough calculations on this in-house. We come up about $30,000 a pole. And like I said, we have found 1 more pole that we would classify. They did not, but we classified it as a replacement pole, bringing the project cost up to about $150,000. And then DGR, our other firm, did an assessment, and their recommendation was to replace everything in the blue box here with steel structures. They would replace the 34 wood poles with steel poles. This would be basically from Front Street. Actually, it's a little service road right off Front Street to County Road 21. The cost is $513,000 if we can go with just a direct bury, and only the river crossing right here needing concrete. Where's my cursor? Right there. These 2 needing concrete. But just to cover ourselves for budgeting, we were wondering what it would be if they needed to do concrete foundations down in the floodplain like that. So the total projected cost with concrete would be about $663,000. This was the pole that they found between the 2 assessments that had damage. This is one that didn't have prior damage. And then today they were finding that pole again was hit. And number 12 right here was hit previously, but these were new damage that is just occurring right now. And our conclusions are, we're going to determine the most applicable course of action. Right now, we're going to be wrapping the rest of the poles as a preventative maintenance, trying to keep them away from there. And of course, repairing any new damage when we find it. We feel it's an ongoing issue. There's a resident woodpecker population now, so this probably isn't going to go away. It is time sensitive, but we do have our second feeder from North 23rd Street, so it's not a panic, but it is time sensitive. Again, can do a detailed design with the secondary feed. Staff recommends that replacement with wood poles is not really a good idea. I think we should go to a steel pole for obvious reasons. Woodpeckers are just going to look at the new pole too.
So I would just add, it is a new situation that we're facing here. Those poles have been out there. That river crossing been out there since the early to mid 1980s. Poles are inspected, periodically by Osmos, the company that comes in and tests the strength, and they've never noted any damage like this before. So the damage, it varies, and I think Dan and I have become probably more familiar with woodpecker damage over the last several months than we ever thought that we would. But there's three grades of damage. They do the the initial exploratory digging and then the feeding damage where they'll dig a little bit deeper holes. But these woodpeckers actually nest in the poles. They dig out a whole nest where you have a pole that might be 24 inches or 18 inches across. They hollow out 70 to 80% of the area and dig vertical shafts. So they do take apart the vast majority of the strength of the pole. Those are the 4 that were recommended for immediate replacement and found to be, for some more structural analysis. The critical point with structural stress is at the base of the pole. The strength is most critical. But because of the damage that has occurred and the loss of the section, if you will, the critical point has been transferred up to that area where the damage has occurred. So I think we're continuing to research this situation and analyze those reports. We've found some more recent research, more of a probabilistic report that has been done, because the other, you got damage obviously, but everything's going to be okay until a windstorm or ice storm comes. That's when they break off. So we want to do a little bit more analysis, determine what's the most appropriate project. As Dan mentioned, take the steps to fix what we have, and apparently they've had good success with wrapping the poles, Dan, with a kind of a fiber mesh. But you do one and they continue to move out to a spot that's not treated, so it gets quite extensive.
How many total poles would there be that could be damaged?
Well, 34 are down here in the river bottom, and if I remember right, there's a total of like 65 poles from Fort Ridgely to Center Street substation.
What is the lifespan of a wooden pole if it was not for woodpeckers?
Well, I think the design life is usually 25 to 30 years.
Okay.
And then obviously we've got some that are older than that. And if they're nothing attacks them, they could last up to 50, I would think.
Do you have the approximate cost between a steel versus a wood pole?
The steel poles were actually a laminate pole right now. Laminate wood pole is more expensive than a steel pole.
Really?
And a cedar pole, like is out there now, would be cheaper, but we didn't get a current price on that.
Okay.
But the pole around $8,000, and I think the steel pole, when we did our rough calcs, was 12 or a little more.
12,000
a pole.
for steel?
Yep.
And laminated was 8?
Yep. And then installation was what they came up with this project here. And let me get to the right one, because we're doing all of it at once. Cost, economics of scale.
Yeah.
With the concrete foundation was $19,500 installed. Concrete foundation was about $4,500. The pole was around 12, so actual erection was around $3,000.
I'm glad you're doing more study. I wouldn't want to make this decision without those 2 guys here, that's for sure.
So, and that was for the 30-some poles or the 60 all the way?
This would be, just for this blue section, it's 34 poles. If I,
That's the $500,000?
yeah, that was 513,000. If we don't need to use concrete foundations, $150,000 more if we can't do direct bury due to soil conditions.
So Dan, the question I have, maybe the commission's interested in, when the damage is most prevalent in the wooded areas, correct? Because this pole system extends across the river from the Fort Ridgely substation and then radiates out to both the north and the south side substation.
Right. And
It's mainly just the river crossing where it goes through the,
here's where we see the most activity, is right along here. And as you can see, the new poles, again, are right along the river floodplain here. Obviously, this is wonderful habitat for the woodpeckers to nest and live, and they go to what's convenient.
Is it seasonal, like in the spring? Is this probably going to be where
I
we're
was
seeing a lot of
actually
damage?
surprised when this pole showed up between January and April 12th. And I was kind of hoping, like when the ducks come back mid-April.
Mhm.
So no, it's year-round. Maybe not as many, but it is a,
So what does that mean for how time sensitive? When you say time sensitive, like in a few months, we're going to hear about this again, or next year's budget cycle, or?
We're hoping to put something in next year's budget. Not to, remember, we do have a second feed off 23rd North, but of course that limits us to only one feed. And then we're relying more on our generation components if there is another outage.
Our intent at this time is to continue to repair the damage that we have, try to prevent additional damage to new poles that haven't been touched, and then to prepare a budget for inclusion in next year's funding.
So right now, do you fill the holes with something and then wrap the poles? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
they
doing?
fill them with Osmos is actually the company that came up with this filler and wood dowels.
Mhm.
And then they are wrapping it with a wire oilcloth, basically wire mesh of a sufficient gauge where they cannot get through it. But they have some problems when they start having to reach above where the underbuild is or where the 69 kV is for our guys to go up there and work. Our
Oh.
bucket truck isn't significant enough to get up that high. Ours is more of a distribution. Our guys work on distribution. They're not licensed or qualified to work on transmission.
Is that a possibility to ongoing fill holes and wrap? Or is that probably not cost effective? As
Well-
we go and you see, you know, and if you get somebody else in to do it with a bigger lift?
It's something we're gonna look into. It's obviously much cheaper than replacing a pole. We had a little financial discussion about the price of the wrap. I mean, a roll of wrap is under $100 and you can do several poles with it. So it's much cheaper. But, you know, once the damage has occurred, it's uncertain as to how much strength the filling restores. It doesn't restore 100% of the strength.
Well, in the pole or a tree, they're in our backyard where I live, and I see it quite often, and they'll have several nests in the same tree at different levels,
Yeah.
so.
And that's what we're finding now. It's
Yeah.
not just some of these new ones you'll find.
Yeah.
Like this pole and this pole here, this one's already slated to be replaced. And this is the second attack on that pole right there, or a second instance. So, you know, every time you get multiples, you're reducing that surface
Sure.
area for strength as you go up the pole.
Dan, did you bring a picture of the culprit?
No, I did not.
Culprits.
He wouldn't hold
Slide
the
poster?
Yeah.
numbers for prison.
Have you had any conversation with the DNR about them helping solve this problem?
No, I don't know if they would appreciate my humor on how to take care of the problem.
Well, if you've ever seen one, it's an interesting bird. It looks prehistoric.
It's a very big bird,
Big bird.
too.
I'd offer a motion to receive and order file the reports from DGR Engineering and Power System Engineering concerning the woodpecker damage to the New Ulm 69 kVA electrical transmission system.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? On the motion and second to receive and order file the reports from DGR Engineering and Power Systems Engineering of the woodpecker damage to the New Ulm 69 kVA electrical transmission system. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next, we have a presentation by our Assistant Finance Director regarding gas hedging.
Good afternoon, President Heine, Commissioners. Back in January, I did a presentation with regard to our hedging program, and there was a couple questions that were asked at that time. So we decided to do a second part to this presentation. And so I just want to, sorry, here we go. There we go. Okay. I'm just going to recap the current New Ulm natural gas hedging program for everyone. We're also going to have a little discussion on the risk management premium that comes from locking in gas out into the future. And then a short review of a rate analysis that was done by an area utility. And then also there's some scenarios with some alternate percentage locks that I just want to put before you. we're looking at not necessarily making a decision today, but just want to give you additional information, and there's probably going to be a part 3 presentation at some point this fall too, and at that time we may make some recommendations. In 2004, the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission authorized staff to develop a hedging program, and this program was based on a time diversity model that was shown to us by BP Gas and Power, which is our natural gas supplier. And since that time, the utilities has hedged a portion of our winter gas, which would be November through March, at approximately 70% of our base load. And the concept of the model, again, is to stabilize the price and protect it from volatile spikes that you can sometimes see in the daily gas market or the monthly market. With this concept, just as a reminder, the utility will not always have the highest price, but we also probably are not going to see the lowest price either. This graph here shows a few different things. The blue line going out from January of 1999 to December of well, it actually goes out all the way to January 2017. But from January 99 to December 2005, what that is our it's actual market gas. It's got no locks, and so that was the price. And you can see at this point we're in a rising gas market. So probably about, as I said before, in 2004, we talked about doing a hedging program, and I believe that program started January of 2006. And so that's represented by the gold line. And so what that would be, the gold line would be our, the market price as well as the hedged price pooled. And so that would be pooled rates from November through March. And then in the summer months, you can see those, you can't really see the blue line. That's because the price is the same. It overlaps. So wherever the gold line is, typically it's going to be a little bit higher than what your blue line would be. And then the gray line is the locked pricing. So that's the price that we locked in for the future for those months. One thing you want to notice is you're always going to pay a premium when you're going out locking gas because you're looking out to the future. And so, your prices at one point, when you look out to the future, you're probably going to be at about this point. And so you can see coming down here, we're kind of starting to get into a falling market. So, this is several years worth of history that kind of paints the picture of how the hedging program worked for us. Again, you can see here, this is where that pipeline explosion and the pipeline congestion was, and how it typically, the gold line is below the blue line, so it saved us dollars at that point. So one of the questions that was asked was, what is the premium that we're paying for hedging gas out to the future? And I calculated out the premium for only the winter months. So that would just be, if you calculate it out and it's just November through March, it calculated out to about 96 cents MCF. For billing purposes, which we're probably more familiar with, that would be about 9.6 cents a CCF. So it does equate to about a 19% premium just over that winter. However, if you were to look at it over, spread it out, natural gas is used throughout the year, not just from November to March. If you spread it out throughout the whole year, the premium for all of the months calculated out to be 46 cents per MCF or 4.6 cents per CCF, which equated to about a 9% premium. So I calculated out what an average natural gas customer would use. They would use approximately, on average, 650 CCFs annually of natural gas. And so what that would do to their bill is it increased at approximately $45 annually to have that protection against the market spikes. We're involved in a utility rate analysis that's done by another utility in Minnesota, and they do it annually, and so we send our data in, and then because we send it in, they allow us to, or they share the report with us. And so what this graph shows is the residential class, and it's a gas rate comparison. And so you can see down below who is involved in the comparison, and you can also see where New Ulm fits, and the arrow, this arrow right here is New Ulm. And so we're right about in the middle of the pack. But what I want to note on here, what's important to note, I think, is that, you know, the graph may show that we're in the middle of the pack, but if you actually do some analysis, you're going to see that the spread between the lowest and us is only about 9%. But the spread between us and the highest is 29%. So although we're in the middle, we're actually considerably lower than what the highest utility is on this particular graph. The next graph that I have is for the commercial, and they're all relatively close, both residential, commercial, and industrial, but I brought the three for you to see. Again, New Ulm here is about in the middle. It follows true with the residential. We're 7.6% from the bottom of the graph, but we're 42% from the top. So a little less than half from the top utility that was included. And the next graph is our industrial. And again, we're in about the same spot. We're 18% from the bottom, but we're 79% from the top. And so I think, you know, this particular graph shows a good picture. I know that the top, well, including ourselves, participate in a hedging program, although not all hedging programs are the same. You know, there's some programs where they will go out and they'll purchase gas on a specific date, irregardless of what the price is. We tend to do a little bit more analysis with that, where we will, as in the presentation in January, we'll kind of watch trends. There's graphs we're using. We'll get advice from our supplier, things like that, to try to make a kind of tweak it a little bit and make a decision. The bottom ones on the graph here, XL, we're thinking probably CenterPoint. They probably don't lock in gas at all. They're probably using either a daily or a first of the month pricing for their customers. So, what this shows me is that although we're using a hedging program, it is keeping our costs down. Probably not as far down as if we didn't hedge at all, but we're also not paying the $53 an MCF that probably back in 2014 the XL and CenterPoint customers probably saw. This is just a little bit different analysis of the same information. I just chose the industrial graph to show you, and the pink is New Ulm, and it just kind of shows you where we've been from 2013 to 2016. It kind of fluctuates up and down, but we're typically about in the middle of the pack all the way through. This is a couple scenarios. I've done 3 different scenarios of, I guess you would call it what ifs. This scenario is similar to what we're currently doing. and it's the 70% lock from November through March. And you can see by the orange or the gold line, that is our blended rate. And the blue line is what the market was. So had we not locked in, you would see we would be paying the blue line. With the locks, we're paying the gold. And so you can see there's some gaps. You know, when we started out, it was looking pretty good. We were in a rising market, and so it was following relatively closely. Once you start having a downward market, you're burning gas that you bought 7 years out. And so that's where you're going to see you're not necessarily paying the highest, but you're not paying the lowest either. If you see here, things are starting to get closer again, because as we're buying in this downward market, we're buying at a lower price because the market's going down. And so you're going to see, if this were to go out, 30 years or 40 years, you're going to see this. You're going to see this up and down and up and down. So this is currently where we're at right now. The next graph that I did, it's not real different, but it does kind of pull these in a little bit closer. What this is showing is a November lock at 40%, a December lock at 60, January lock at 70, February at 60, and March at 40. So we kind of moved it around a little bit with usage. And what we found was, on the slide before, the premium that we saved, actually it wouldn't be a premium, but what we saved in this peak was about $1.62. When we changed to a different percentage lock, we would have saved about $1.40. So overall, our premium was about 19%. In this scenario, it was probably more around 17%. So as the locks came down, of course, you're buying more gas. Because we're in a downward market, we're buying it cheaper. So that's going to bring your percentage down. The final graph I did, scenario 3, is where we dropped out November and March. November and March are, we call them the shoulder months. They can be, as far as weather, they can be kind of volatile. We don't know, you sometimes run the chance of, if it's real warm, you could end up running the chance of selling back in. So we thought, well, we'll do one without locking anything in and just riding the market during those shoulder months. And again, you can see what's happening. You're getting a closer track, but what you want to remember is you're buying less in the futures. So if you do have a spike, like here, which we did, you're going to have less of a protection. And so in this particular case, the savings, went from, or the savings went from $1.62 to $1.15. So there was about 50 cents. We paid more per MCF during that time. This probably brought our overall savings down to probably about 10 or 11%, because you're buying, again, less out in the future, less at a higher price in this particular market. So just to recap, the program, as I showed it, it did protect us in 2014 when we had that pipeline explosion. There are other percentage lock opportunities that we could consider just to tighten the gap between the market price and the futures. But again, we need to acknowledge that whenever you lower the future, you're increasing more risk. There's also, we had sat through an informational webinar, and there was some discussion on the opportunity to lock in locational basis, or the locational component of the future. So what that means is you're locking in actually the component from where where the gas is getting transported to. And so you're not locking in the molecules, you're locking in more of the basis point. And so we want to do a little bit more research on that, because I think in 2014, when there was that pipeline explosion, it wasn't maybe so much that the gas price was going up, it was that there was congestion, or you couldn't get those molecules across, so there was a higher locational basis that caused that price to spike. So we need to learn a little bit more about that. We have BP coming this next week, so we're gonna talk to him a little bit about that and see if there's an option with that. There's also some options, and I think we've brought it before the commission, it's been many, many years, but options with a prepay, where you actually will lock in a discount rather than locking in the gas price, you'll lock in a discount. So there's some other opportunities that are out there that I think we want to take a look at as well. So I guess what we're planning to do is do some more discussion on a staff level, and also with people that we consider experts, and then we'll probably bring an updated hedging program to the commission sometime this fall. So if there's any questions or discussion.
A quick question on your page 3, residential comparisons with these other communities. Those that were a little bit like Albert Lee, et cetera, did they hedge or did they not hedge?
Well, I believe that Excel and Centerpoint do not.
Okay.
That is my understanding from the gas department. Albert Lee, MERS, I'm not, or MERC, I'm not sure. But
with 2016 fairly level gas prices, if we'd had a spike, this could have changed us big time.
oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. If the same thing would have happened in 2014, you would have seen Excel and Centerpoints
Way up.
going up.
Thank
Yep.
you.
This wasn't one of the primary reasons we went to the hedging, was to stabilize almost like month by month the wild swings. I mean, I was here during that time, and people were saying in wintertime my bill goes so high, and then in summertime it goes so low. It's just the highs and lows. Can we get any stability to that? And this was a way to not go so high, but then not go so low. It was kind of averaging it out.
Well, right, and when you look back at when we started the program, we were seeing gas prices rising. I mean, we probably went from $3 MCF to $10, and so when you're seeing a rise like that, you don't know how far that's going to go. You don't have the future. Can't look back and say, oh, well, this is what's going to happen. And so I think it's important to protect the future, somehow. The level is what the commission's comfort level is with that premium. We talked about it the last time when we did the presentation. It's a type of insurance. What is your comfort level? What is the premium that you are comfortable with seeing? And are there other opportunities out there too? So
I'd offer a motion to receive and file a report regarding natural gas hedging program for the New Ulm Public Utilities.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? We have a motion and second to receive and file the report regarding natural gas hedging program for the New Ulm Public Utilities. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have an update on our well field improvement application.
Yes. Commissioners, last month we came to you and said we wanted permission to file an application, and we were able to get it in time. We haven't had any questions back, so they must be comfortable with our application. At this point, we don't know how many other communities have applied to get onto this list. The Department of Health will look at the different parameters on each of the applications to give a ranking. We think we'll have a pretty good chance of getting high ranking because we're looking at bringing the well field structures up to the current standard for the Department of Health, and that we would be also extending the life of that well field, and that we wouldn't have to be moving. And this week I also found out that since we included a reference into our wellhead protection program that we were looking at this, there may be some money specifically tied to wellhead protection that we might have access to. So I included the application for you to look at. Like I said, there weren't any questions. The SEH Engineering Company has a specialist on staff that deals with these applications, and she was a big help to getting that done.
I'll make a motion to receive and order file New Ulm's Wellfield Improvement Project application to the Minnesota Department of Health's 2018 Drinking Water Revolving Fund Project Priority List.
Second.
We have a motion and second to receive and order filed the New Ulm's Wellfield Improvement Project application to the Minnesota Department of Health's 2018 Drinking Water Revolving Fund Project Priority List. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And I'll keep you apprised of this. As I said before, we're not obligated to anything by getting on the list. But if there's money out there, we should go after it.
Okay, so under unfinished business, we have to reconsider or discuss again the settlement agreement with Hutchinson Utilities Commission.
President Heine, I think that Roger has a few comments to add about the draft agreement.
Thank you, Pat. President Heidi and Commissioners, this is back on the agenda again for the Commission. I believe that you've already considered this and approved the terms of the settlement agreement. The reason it's here is because I was contacted last week by the city attorney for Hutchinson. I asked him where this stood from their perspective. They're meeting tomorrow, and he asked if we could get them a copy of the agreement that New Ulm had signed. And I said, well, I think the terms had been approved, and if that's something procedurally that's important for you, we were meeting today, and you know, I'm hoping we could do that. So I think at this point, unless anyone on the commission has any questions, the amount that Hutchinson would be paying is the $1,288,645.98. We assume that there would be a cash payment in that amount. What I guess I would be asking is if the Commission could designate who needs to sign this on behalf of the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission. If that could be signed, if I could get a copy of the signed document tomorrow, I will email it to the Hutchinson City Attorney. I'll have it for their agenda, and I'm hoping we can get this signed off by both parties within the next couple of days. And looking at the city charter, it would be my opinion that I think the city manager would be the person. The charter indicates he's the person designated to enter into contracts on behalf of the commission. If you wanted to also authorize Mr. Ozzie, I think that would be appropriate. That would be within your discretion as far as who would be signing off, or President Heine, however you want to do it, just so we have a resolution indicating who the signatories are going to be. And if those persons then could please sign it, then I'll be able to send it off to Hutchinson.
So we approved this settlement and the terms of the document that you're asking for a signature on at the last meeting.
I don't know if it was the last meeting, but I think it has been approved by the commission as far as the amount. And we've just been trying to get it finalized and to have Hutchinson sign off and pay the money. And so now the Hutchinson Public Utilities is asking to have us sign it first and send it up, and then it'll be on their agenda tomorrow. So
I'd offer motion instructing the city manager to sign this execution of a settlement agreement with the Hutch Utility Commission to resolve the metering error and resultant overbilling for natural gas the Hutchinson Utilities Commission caused to the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission for the period from January 2013 through July 2015.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one question that goes with this. So when we get this check, where does it go? What happens to it?
New polls?
What's that?
New polls?
Well, once we get the check,
Yeah,
the funds will go into the gas department,
like reserves or something?
into the reserves, right? And we want to be clear that the additional expenses that have been paid out to our gas supplier throughout this process
Mhm.
did not result in an increase in rates to any of our gas customers. We utilized reserve funds to pay for the gas. So we'll replenish those reserve funds, and on an annual basis, as we do right now with the budgeting process, examine the level of the reserves and the future projects.
So
and
nobody
make
was
adjustments.
overcharged because of this issue with Hutchinson is the long and short of it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and second to direct the city manager to execute the settlement agreement with Hutchinson Utilities Commission to resolve the metering error and resultant overbilling for natural gas the Hutchinson Utilities Commission caused the New Ulm Public Utilities Commission for the period from January 2013 through July of 2015. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is to consider and review the 2016 Survey of Public Services.
Okay, President Heine and PUC members, the city has, I believe for 6 years, performed a survey where we send out 300 surveys, and that would be 75 in each ward. We received 171 surveys, which is a response rate of 57, and looks to me like, you know, that's still a pretty good number for returns on a community survey. Most of the departments, whether they be city or PUC, remain fairly consistent. You'll notice that some years, you know, one would go up, the next year it goes down and goes up and goes down, but they're really not changing that much. The difference in overall score in the individual averages is 0.02 to 0.155, so it's a very small change every year, and I'm going to attribute that just to the people. You're not using the same people year after year, so there's always going to be a small change just because of that factor. But overall, we had, again, very good score. You'll note that the fire department rated number 1 again at 4.51, and the condition of city streets is the lowest at 3.35. You know, 3, 4, and 5 are all above, or at least 3 is satisfactory, and 4 and 5 are above that. We had none below 3, so we can, you know, take that to heart. One of the more interesting things that comes out of this are the comments that are made by the citizens of New Ulm. There are a lot of very positive comments, you know, love the city, wouldn't live anywhere else, and there's a lot of other comments that would be on the negative side. I guess what I would, you know, encourage the PUC is to look at the comments and look at the data, and then when we start doing our budgets for the upcoming year, 2018, that we utilize this information to say, is there something we can do in that particular department to, you know, increase that rating? And that's what this is all about. The state of Minnesota wanted to have citizen input, and that the elected, you know, and appointed people could see what the citizens wanted and what they felt was substandard and what they felt was okay. So it's a way of identifying needs and where you want to spend your resources. So with that in mind, one of the things that did come up at the city council meeting was one of the resounding comments that has been occurring throughout the 6 years of the survey has been the utility rates, are being commented on as being too high. But then again, too many cops shows up a lot, and too many parks, and State Street is too busy on Halloween, stuff like that. There are some things we can actually do, and there's some things we can't do. What can building inspections do to encourage clean up, fix up, paint up? Well, not much. We just can't force people to clean up their house or clean up the paint or paint up their house. That's not part of the safety aspect of why cities even exist. But I would, I guess from the PUC side, there were a few comments that were within the survey comment area. On Ward 3, electricity rates are high. One of the things that, we just saw on gas was if, even though we're in the middle of the graph, the difference between a mean and a median, even though we're in the middle of the graph, we were 9% from the bottom and 29% from the top. So that really puts us in the bottom end, we're not that far off from the lowest rates as far as gas. So when you look at the numbers, it's more than just a simple colored graph. We gotta, look at the differences. We could be a penny away on one and $10 away on the other, but we'd still be in the middle, and I think what we're, I know Mr. Rossi and Ms. Manderfeld and I have had discussions on just today on what things can we look at, as far as it impacts the electric. Now, some are, not going to be maybe socially or community acceptable, but they are expenses that do increase the cost of the electric utility. And so we'll be, identifying those that we already have and maybe some others that possibly we can bring back to the PUC and say, where do you want to sit on this particular topic? We're spending, $200,000 in this particular area from the electric utility. Is that justified? Should somebody else be paying that? So those are policy decisions that will be brought back. So that's how we're going to be using this information to see where we can do better and maybe try and make adjustments and provide that information to you so that you then can make the final say when you do the budgets. And that's the intent of this whole survey. We receive about $1,800 from the state of Minnesota for doing this, and it covers our costs, and it does provide some information. It's not perfect, and I think we all understand that, but it gives us something to go off of while we look at our budgets. And the other reason we do this is the state of Minnesota also said that we would not be subject to levy limits in the future if we did this and utilize our citizen input in our budgets, because decisions made at the local level for the benefit of the local citizen are probably done, at this level. But then the very next year they put levy limits on the city, so not necessarily the intended final effect. So any questions, I'd be more than willing to try and answer them, but the city council has already seen this and accepted it. We'll be submitting it to I think we've already submitted it to the state of Minnesota as required, and this goes on our city website so that people who want to see the survey results can. You can also view it at the state auditor's office website also. They've got a spot there for community survey results, and you can look at all the cities and counties that participate in this particular program. Interestingly enough, I think the city of Mankato and North Mankato just started in like 2 years ago. So when this first came up, there was discussion, is it worth even doing? I felt we should at least, try it and see how the results come out and if it's something we can use. And a few cities fell off, said they didn't see any value to it, and a few cities may not be in this particular program, but they're doing their own surveys that actually meet this requirement. So to that extent, I think people are getting more interested in finding out what residents think of the services they receive, and who doesn't want to have that? Letters to the editor are okay, but getting it from the citizens in a fairly more accurate manner is good too. So,
Okay, I'll move to receive and order filed the 2016 Survey of Public Services and Performance Measurement Report.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and second to receive and order filed the 2016 Survey of Public Services and Performance Measurement Report. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have a request to consider purchase of some new equipment.
President Heine, I'll take this one. This is GPS equipment that is to be purchased by the water department, and the intent is to use this equipment to do very accurate locating of water facility equipment, gate valves, fire hydrants, curb stops, district energy components, and get a more accurate location of these pieces of water infrastructure, get it into our GIS mapping system, and have that data available to our crews as they go out and respond to calls. So that's the intent, to purchase this equipment, and I believe that the water department superintendent is intending to use summer helpers to start working on this right away if the purchase is approved.
I'll make a motion authorizing staff to purchase the Trimble Geo 7 Series GPS locating equipment and monopole kit with software from Frontier Precision Inc. at a cost of $13,491.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and second to authorize staff to purchase the Trimble Geo 7 Series GPS locating equipment and monopole kit with software from Frontier Precision Inc. at a cost of $13,491. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have a bid to consider for the wastewater department.
Yes, President Heine, Commission members, this is a bid to have a contractor perform rehabilitation work on some sanitary sewer manholes that have been deteriorated because of hydrogen sulfide gas in this particular line. So Dan O'Connor's here to give a presentation on the technology that's being used here. So it looks like he's having a
I'm just stealing a video off of YouTube.
bit of technical difficulty.
President Heine and Commissioners.
Turn it over to Dan.
These manholes are off of industry line, so the H2S is a little bit more prevalent. There's not a lot of residential wastewater to dilute the high-strength waste. These manholes are about 23 years old. We've been monitoring them, and this has been in our budget for probably the last 5 or 6 years. I guess some of the benefits of lining and rehabbing manholes, obviously replacing them, it gets expensive. It's cheaper to line them. You don't have to excavate if you're going to replace. You don't have to set up bypass pumping. You don't have to shut down an industry to do the work. So there's a lot of social things that are involved as well. You're not closing streets, and there's not a lot of restoration. So this Spectra Shield has been around for about 20 years. It's based out of Florida, and recently a company from Minnesota just got licensed to rep this this type of lining. It comes with a 10-year warranty, which is I think maybe a couple years ago was unheard of. The other thing is they can come in and I think they'll probably get 6 manholes done within about 2 days' time. They come in and they prep it, they wash it down, they can plug fill, so we can continue to carry the wastewater through the collection system underneath, and I think we'll look at doing this around town. You know, we do go out with our camera truck and inspect, and we've talked to the street department to start looking at manholes. You know, back in the day, the manholes were all put in with steps, so people could enter. And there's a lot of manholes out there that are still made out of the old New Ulm red brick, and a lot of those steps aren't remaining. So this is being done because hydrogen sulfide will turn into a sulfuric acid, and sulfuric acid will turn your cement structures into, I guess we refer to it as butter. And the reason that these are being done is, you know, 6-8 years ago we had a lot of odor issues coming out of this particular industry, and we did a lot of different things. One of the things we did was we put enclosed manholes on covers on the manholes, so no pick holes, so that hydrogen sulfide gas can escape. So it's trapped in there, and our process now is just to go out 3-4 times a year and rinse that slime, zoological film, bacteria, whatever you want to call it, off of the walls, so it doesn't eat away at the structure. So just a quick overview. Cost competitive. Like I said, it's been around. They say 100-year design life. They've been doing this for 20 years. They have a couple of the first installations that are still holding true to time.
So we're talking about 6 manholes, correct?
Yep.
Now, how many do we have in the city, do you, approximately?
400.
Okay.
That's an educated guess.
So would it be a 10-year cycle, 20-year cycle to do them all?
You know, most of them that are in your residential streets don't have the H2S bacteria.
Okay.
It's the high strength waste, sulfur-reducing bacteria. All your industries are going to have that, but all the industries besides the one that I'm talking about has that mix of residential waste to go along with it.
Okay.
And this one doesn't pick up any residential waste until it gets through the force main.
Okay.
So where are these 6 located then?
Shell Road. So the industry I'm talking about is Shells, and we'd hate to have to shut those guys down for a week.
Dan, do you see the problem? I've experienced it with lift station discharges, right, where the wastewater is stored, the oxygen.
Or travels a long ways.
What's sitting in a wet well or travels a long ways, and the oxygen is depleted, and there's still organic material there. And when the oxygen gets depleted, these bacteria that thrive in a non-oxygen environment.
Sulfur-reducing bacteria.
That's right. So the same situation can occur outside of any lift station, has been my experience.
It occurs right at our plant, at our lift station from the city of Cortland's wastewater. That travels, 8 miles as a crow flies. That lift station's been online about as long as these new manholes on the new force main at Shells. We've redone that lift station 3 times in 20 years. So maybe the next time we'll look at this type of process, because there's a lot of different companies that do this.
So you mentioned these manholes are only about 20 years old, and I think that's what you said, 20 years.
Yep.
We have manholes in other parts of the city that are 100 years old in some cases. So this is a real corrosive environment. It's if you're going to dig one of these manholes up, you're looking at probably a $10,000 to $15,000 expense on each one, plus bypass pumping. So we think this is a good, cost-effective solution to these more corrosive environments. And not that we'll be able to apply it in every location, but I think in similar situations, we're going to attempt to use this, save some expense, and hopefully extend the life of the system.
Yeah, my only concern was, is this a 400 manhole cost, or is this at
Over the next
3,000 per
over the
hour?
next 200 years. Like I
I
said,
can handle that.
Most
conversation table.
residential manholes are some of them might be older, but they don't have that hydrogen sulfide gas issue and sulfuric acid and all the other things that deteriorate.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Dan, is it like a plastic? I
It's a
mean, what is the material?
It's a polyurethane, and I guess we didn't really pay attention to the video, but they quickly wash it down, and then they put base layer down polyurethane, and then they do an insulation coat to sort of get that surface smooth, and then they put a nice hot pink finish on it, which is also polyurethane. So it's about a 1/2 inch thick. One of the other reasons we went with this company is because of the thickness. A lot of these, the times we've done the Cortland lift station, it's this great component that's supposed to not let H2S deteriorate it, and 5-year warranty, and 2.5 years later, that component is already sloughing off the walls. So the third time we had it done, we just paid for their labor, and they paid for this sulfur resistant urethane or polyurethane finish. But like I said, it lasted about 2.5 years. So we do deal with H2S in other parts of the city and even at the wastewater plant. But I think if we continue to clean the growth off the manholes, at least quarterly, I'm sure we'll get 10 years, if not 25 years out of this process. Thank you.
I'll move to authorize the wastewater staff to accept R&H Painting LLC's bid of $19,600 to rehabilitate and line 6 manholes.
I'll second.
Is there any more discussion? We have a motion and second to authorize wastewater staff to accept R&H Painting LLC's bid of $19,600 to rehabilitate and line 6 manholes. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider authorizing attendance at training.
Yes, President Tiny, Commission members, this is to authorize training for some of our gas department staff to go to Mercury Instruments Training Facility in Cincinnati, Ohio, where they receive training on the setup and calibration of the Mercury Instrument specific volume correctors, and these are the devices that are installed on our large industrial gas meters. So it's very important to train our staff and to become familiar with this equipment. As we know from our gas topics recently, the calibration and accuracy of our meters is of vital importance. So the gas department is requesting to send 2 employees down to Cincinnati, Ohio from October 10th through the 12th of this year for the training.
I'd offer the motion authorizing attendance at the Mercury Basic Instrumentation Training Class to be held at the Honeywell facility in Cincinnati, Ohio, October 10th through the 12th, 2017.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Motion and second to authorize attendance at the Mercury Basic Instrumentation Training Class to be held at the Honeywell facility in Cincinnati, Ohio, on October 10th through 12th, 2017. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is to consider our list of claims.
I'd offer the motion to accept the list of claims paid in the amount of $3,038,349.77 and approve the list of claims to be paid in the amount of $702,359.78.
Second.
We have a motion and second to accept the list of claims paid in the amount of $3,038,349.77 and approve the list of claims to be paid in the amount of $702,359.78. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The last item on our agenda is to go into, to convene a closed session we will do in accordance with Minnesota statutes 13D.05 subdivision 3B to discuss possible litigation related to unpaid, unaccounted for gas volumes transported on the Fairfax gas pipeline to the Heartland Corn Products ethanol plant. So we'll go into closed session, but we are not adjourned.